Welcome to our introductory course on Eternalism, the divine philosophy of the eternal worlds. Unit 24, Connecting the Dots, Part 2. In Unit 24, we ask where morality and rights truly come from. The common answers, God or the state, are both authority-based and ultimately subjective. As eternalists, we reject that false choice and trace morality and rights back to existence itself through human nature and value ethics. A flourishing life requires both right habits and right habitats, and this unit shows how connecting those dots gives us a solid, reality-based foundation for objective morality and individual rights. As a quick review, this chart helps us map out the origins of morality and rights by connecting the source of each to their corresponding moral orientation and rights language. I'm linking morality and rights here because the arguments used to support the origin of morality are often the same ones used to support the origin of rights, as you'll soon see. Some of the terms in this chart may be new or unfamiliar. Rather than define them all now, I'll leave that for the Quiz Overview podcast, which follows this one, and provides a full explanation of each term. Let's begin with the God-based view. Those who believe God is the source of morality and rights hold that these are grounded in moral absolutes and inalienable rights, standards that are fixed, transcendent in nature, and therefore cannot be taken away. Because they come from a divine source, they are considered higher than human opinion or law. Next is the reality-based view. This view holds that morality and rights are grounded in reality itself, not in God, the state, or private opinion. It leads to moral imperatives and individual rights, based on objective truths about human nature, eternal laws, and eternal existence. This is the view we refer to as the eternalist perspective. Finally, there's the state-based view. This position sees morality and rights as supported or created by the state, resulting in moral relativism and state-granted privileges. With no grounding in objective reality, morality and rights become relative and revocable, based only on political power, popular opinion, or divine decree. In short, from the eternalist perspective, only reality-based morality and rights are truly objective. While the God-based view may claim transcendence, it still rests on the primacy of consciousness, a divine will declaring morality and rights into existence. Once morality is detached from objective reality, whether by divine decree or state authority, we are left with moral relativism and rights that function as temporary permissions, not enduring principles. Here is a note. A tyrannical danger arises when the God-based view is merged with the state-based view, resulting in a fusion of church and state. Such a fusion undermines the very idea of objective morality and rights, reducing them to tools of coercion rather than principles of freedom. Again, all 6 terms and distinctions will be explained in detail in the Quiz Overview podcast. For now, this framework helps us see what's really at stake in choosing one source of morality and rights over another. Let's move on to the next point. Notice from the chart that both the God-based and state-based views of morality and rights follow a clear and direct path to their respective conclusions. The God-based view leads to moral absolutes and inalienable rights, but these are clearly authority-based and rest on divine decree. Similarly, the state-based view leads to moral relativism and state-granted privileges, also rooted in authority, in this case state power. Both approaches ultimately fail for similar reasons. They are grounded in the primacy of consciousness rather than the primacy of existence. The God-based view faces the troubling question: which God are we talking about? The Christian God? The Muslim God? A cosmic or even a pagan God? Each deity brings its own version of morality and rights, leading to the all-too-familiar standoff. My God, my absolutes, my inalienable rights, not yours. The state-based view suffers from the same problem, only in political form. Morality and rights shift depending on who holds power, making them subjective and unstable, rooted in the idea that might makes right. That said, both views are simple and easy to follow because their arguments flow directly from a central authority. But this clarity disappears when we turn to the reality-based eternalist view. Here, morality and rights are not decreed, but must be discovered through a more complex path grounded in the primacy of existence. In this view, it is reality itself that sets the terms for morality and individual rights. And while the path may be winding, one thing is clear: it must pass through human nature and value ethics to establish an objective foundation. So if we are to argue for a truly objective standard, we must be able to connect the dots from existence to moral imperatives and individual rights. That's the challenge before us, and the project we now turn to. Our task is to connect the dots from existence to morality and rights. To do this, we must pass through human nature and value ethics, recognizing that objective morality, with its moral imperatives and individual rights, must be discovered, not simply declared by divine decree or state authority. We begin by dividing existence into two realms: the animate, which includes all living things and faces the conditional alternative of life or death, and the inanimate, which includes non-living things that face no such alternative. Living things, like humans, animals, plants, and even insects, require certain conditions to stay alive. In contrast, non-living things, like rocks, minerals, and volcanoes, are not life-oriented and do not require anything to exist. Next, we divide the animate realm into two categories: human nature, which is rational and capable of moral agency, and non-human nature, which includes all other living things that are non-rational and therefore non-moral. This distinction leads us to value ethics. For humans, life is the standard of value, and values like food, shelter, and clothing are essential for survival and flourishing. For non-human life, life-oriented values such as water, minerals, nutrients, and even sunlight are tied to their specific nature and needs of each living organism. But there's a key difference. For humans, survival and flourishing depend on rational choice and moral action. For non-human life, survival depends on built-in and automatic processes that are directed toward life-oriented values specific to each organism's nature. At this point, we can set aside non-human nature and focus entirely on the human side. The next step is to explore the internal and external conditions required for human survival and human flourishing, bringing us one step closer to fully connecting existence to morality and rights. Under internal conditions, we emphasize the importance of cultivating right habits, life-flourishing virtues, and avoiding wrong habits, or life-harming vices. Alongside these internal choices is the need for the right external conditions, or habitats, which include the creative and productive acquisition of private property to sustain life, and the recognition of essential individual rights, such as life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. These right habits and right habitats support family, industry, and freedom. They also give rise to the institutions that uphold them. Families, churches, and schools promote internal virtues, while governments, courts, police, and the military protect external rights and safeguard against criminals, oppressors, and tyrants. If human nature were only virtuous, such external safeguards might be unnecessary. But because people are prone to vice, these rights and protections become a moral imperative, a necessary part of creating the conditions for human survival and flourishing. With this, we complete our task. The discovery of morality involves cultivating the right internal habits, a necessary but not sufficient means to achieving the ultimate end of human survival and flourishing. Likewise, the discovery of rights involves securing the right external habitat, which is also a necessary but not sufficient means to the same end. While right habits are necessary but not sufficient on their own, and right habitats are likewise essential but insufficient by themselves, together they form the moral, social, and political foundation for human survival and flourishing. This then completes our assignment of connecting the dots from existence to morality and rights through the lens of human nature and value ethics. Let's end this unit with a few final observations. First, if we as Latter-day Saints and Eternalists fail to make the intellectual effort to connect the dots between existence and the reality-based foundation of morality and rights, we lose the ability to argue for objectivity. This leaves us vulnerable to religious falsehoods, social manipulation, and political agendas. It's tempting to simply point to God or the state as the originating source of morality and rights, but doing so is to abandon the primacy of existence and surrender to the primacy of consciousness. Second, many Latter-day Saints, perhaps most, believe the only way to resist moral relativism and state-granted privileges is to claim morality and rights come from God. They see a false choice, either divine absolutes or state-imposed relativism. But there is a third option, the eternalist reality-based view. This view avoids the subjectivity of both divine decree and state authority. It doesn't rely on debating which God or which regime rules, but instead begins with existence itself, with eternal realities that give rise to eternal laws and objective truths. From this reality-based foundation, we arrive at moral imperatives and individual rights rooted in our identity as rational beings and moral agents, seeking the right habits and right habitats needed for human survival and flourishing. So let's rise to the challenge. Let's be the generation of Latter-day Saints who refuse to retreat into easy answers, who will not surrender reason to authority, and who are unafraid to do the hard work of discovery. Let's stand firmly on the foundation of eternal truth, where morality and rights are not simply decreed or granted, but discovered, adopted, and defended, because they are grounded in reality itself, and therefore objectively provable. This is the eternalist path, but only if we see it, understand it, and share it with purpose and conviction. Hence the importance of connecting the dots between existence, morality, and rights to avoid the pitfalls of religious moral absolutism, secular moral relativism, and the equally dangerous error of tying rights to either God or the state. This ends this Unit 24 presentation. Thank you for watching. Join us for Unit 25, where we connect the dots in the practical realm between believing, thinking, and acting correctly. And don't forget to take the Unit 24 overview quiz, where we define key terms and revisit the bonus question about what makes rights relevant in each of the 3 deserted island scenarios.